Welcome back to Ask the Trade Pros, a show where a couple of trade guys talk about trade stuff. We're here to answer all your questions about your HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and other home systems so you can keep your home running smoothly. I'm Todd.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
We're currently in the hottest part of the year here in Tucson. It's not unusual for the temperature to push 105, 110, sometimes even higher, which means everyone is using their HVAC systems. When they work as intended, this is great for all the hot days, but when they're noisy, it could bring a completely different vibe and distraction during these hot months.
If you've got a noisy system, then you're in luck today, or not in luck because your system is noisy. We're going to talk about some of the common causes of noisy air conditioners, what they might be related to, what you can do to prevent and possibly fix them, and when it's best to call in a professional.
Well, where do we start?
Well, I always get this call from customers all the time, like, it's making this noise, and I go there and I don't hear anything. So the way, I mean...
Yeah, that 90% of the time, the invisible noise.
Yeah, so they live in their house. It's their house. They hear everything. They stay up at night for endless hours listening to the sounds of their house, and they can tell the difference. We hear machines all the time, and there's a huge difference between types of machines, house layouts, house designs, quality of machines, etc. So what I'd like to do is let's start with noises. Maybe we start by where they are and how they sound, and then we can kind of define it from there, Todd?
Yeah, I guess
Most
inside.
Yeah, inside, most common filter.
Yeah, I would say the most common thing is going to be the whistling sound. So we see that all
Can
the
you
time.
make that sound first?
I got to purse my lips. But anyways, I would say the dirty filter. So you get the complaint saying, "Oh, my system sounds like it's making a whistling noise." Well, a whistling noise typically inside, if it's inside, is the cause of a dirty filter. So once that filter's dirty, it's a restriction. It can't get the airflow that it needs, so it creates that whistling noise. So I would recommend replacing those filters on a regular basis, or take it out. If it's somewhere you can access, just pull it out and see if the noise goes away. It could be other reasons. It could be something loose in the blower or the unbalanced, something along those lines. But most of the time, it's the dirty filter.
Yeah, the simple consumer test, I think, on that is to take the filter out, like you said, and see if it gets quiet. I've also found in those instances, it's even the door to the filter. So whether it's a flip-up door or the grill, it's loose or it's rattling or it's not quite locked in place, and the wind, as you said, pulling around, it causes it to make those noises. I've had so many calls where I went out to a customer's house and they're like, it's making this noise, and you literally just touch it with your finger and it stops.
Yeah, just tape up the door, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but yes, the door has usually locks and hinges and ways to secure it better than it might be. And oftentimes it happens right after somebody just changed the filter because they didn't close the door correctly.
Yeah, sometimes there's magnets on some of the filter bases, and I've seen some that fall off after years of opening, closing, bent hinges, etc. So that's the indoor. What else could be wrong with the indoor? I guess we have the blower motor. The loud noise could come from the blower motor if the wheel's unbalanced or
Well, that's what I would do next. So
broken.
If we're talking about noise, first we talked about it where the filter or the return air goes in. But if you trace it all the way back to the equipment, then it's going to be a mechanical issue, correct? Sometimes, occasionally I found like doors not mounted on or come off properly. But like you said, unbalanced wheels. Remember, the wheel inside your air conditioner spins at about 1,000 RPM. So even when it's off, what you might not even be able to see the imbalance. But once it starts spinning at 1,000 RPM, it will make a noise, a boom, 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 boom noise, or a patty noise or something.
Or a humming noise if it has a capacitor and the capacitor is almost dead, or the motor's going bad. Could be, they create a loud humming noise as well.
So that's a good point, Todd. I think we see a lot of that. People will hear the noise right when it starts up, and then it goes away when it's running. A lot of those motor noises on a failing motor happen right at startup, and then it essentially has difficulty turning over and getting moving. And once it's moving, it's okay, but it won't start properly, and it'll make a very loud noise on startup.
Yeah, once that happens, you have a few days or a week.
You do. It's you know how many times we get customers that call and say the problem solved itself?
Yeah, and then a few days later they're calling you. So if you ever hear or are concerned about a noise coming from your indoor unit, the furnace or air handler itself, always call, because you're going to be calling a few days later.
Well, I mean, if you like it 105 in your house, then just wait. It's okay.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, we have some customers that don't mind the heat. They say it's a dry heat, so let's give it to them.
Yeah. So I think we covered the indoor air noises besides a dirty coil.
Most of the common ones we hear, yeah. Sometimes there's some weird noises. Like if you hear scratchy noises in your attic where your furnace is, it's probably not the unit.
That's rats. Squirrel, raccoon, something.
I found what's that animal we have out here? It's like a cat-sized animal. We found one of those up in the attic once.
A cat?
A barcunda, or what are they called? Or
Guadamundi?
maybe something. No, I don't know about that. But there's some animal like that. Like it was larger than a rodent, but it was up in the ceiling. So our producer's over there shaking her head when we're talking about giant rodents in the attic leaving messes.
And that's a good point. I know we're talking about cooling in AC, but if it's during the winter and heating, you have a gas appliance, that noise is coming from your draft inducer, and that's where we find all the good rodents: lizards, rats,
birds.
Yeah,
they've fallen in there. They got
yeah.
I pulled a squirrel out once. Yeah, pack rat. Yeah.
So let's move on to the outside unit. And speaking of noise, so outside you're going to get a lot of different noises, and this could be dependent on brand of system, age of system, quality of install,
piping layouts.
Yeah, there could be a lot of different variables when it comes to the outside, but depending on the age of the system, compressors are normally loud, especially if they're older. With age, they pull more amps. They just become louder towards the end of their life. They vibrate more.
Well, I know we're not supposed to talk about certain brands, Todd, but there are particular brands that are noisier than others. Certain brands are famous for it. They're like the joke in the neighborhood is you can hear everyone's AC go on. That doesn't necessarily mean that unit's running out of specs. It just means it was designed poorly. There's one particular brand that I won't mention.
Starts with a G and ends with an N.
Yes. And then there's another particular brand that has a unit that when it shuts off, even when it's brand new, sounds like you took a car and shoved it into first gear at 50 miles an hour. That's just how they're built and how they're designed, and that's not an abnormal sound for that brand either. That's a different brand again, but
yeah. So loose screws, obviously it has a compressor that is running, so over time screws become loose, metal rattles. A lot of that stuff you could try tightening the screws yourselves, or I guess just determining where the noise is from, because could be your condenser fan motor, it could be the condenser fan motor blade if it's warped or
so we see that a lot now. I've been seeing that as we mentioned in previous episode, this is our monsoon season. We get storms and we'll get hail damage sometimes that will bend that blade or damage that blade. Mm-hmm. And again, these blades spin at either 850 RPM or 1075 RPM, and just a little bit, a degree off on one of the blades will cause it to wobble, and it'll make all kinds of noise. It'll shake the daylights out of the sheet metal. We've seen them pop up and down. They look like they're going to fly off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, low refrigerant could be another issue. That
Absolutely.
Compressor will make a very distinct noise if it's low on charge.
Absolutely. That's damaging your compressor too, but you'll hear it. Now, you might not recognize the sound, but as a qualified technician will recognize it almost immediately because it's essentially an engine running without any of the oil in it, and it has a very distinct sound to a dry compressor. What other kind of sounds do we hear outside? There shouldn't be a whistling sound outside. That is not normal. So you can hear them inside all the time with filters. If you hear it outside, then you have some definite issue.
That's the birds chirping. That's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear your AC unit. So if you want to hear the birds chirping, buy a quality system.
One of the main things with sound, whether it's inside or outside, that I found is your house. So obviously some systems are louder, some systems are designed, they make more wind noise inside, they make more rattling and banging outside. But if you notice a change, that's an important distinction. Just as you would on your car when you drive it every day and it sounds differently, if your air conditioner starts to sound different, then you might want to investigate something. Sometimes it's weather related. For example, a compressor in super high heat is going to make more noise because of the high pressure that it's under. But if you've lived in the house for a couple of years, or you're familiar with the sound of the system and suddenly it's different, then you might want to investigate it, because they usually make the same noises over and over again if it's a design problem, if it's a structure problem. What else you got, Todd?
Good.
You're quieter than an AC over there.
It's because I'm a good AC. Very low decibels. If you've got a noisy AC that's been driving you crazy all summer, talk to your local trusted trade pro for advice, assistance, and service.
Thank you for listening to Ask the Trade Pros. We release new episodes every other Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a question you would like us to answer on the show, please leave us a voicemail or an email, and we may feature your question in an upcoming episode. That information is in the show notes. This podcast is sponsored by the good folks at Done Right Services. As always, thank you for your support.